Hey everybody, it's Keith. Today we continue with the topic of cloud optimization, and we're going to address how in the world can super successful innovation possibly bankrupt your company, and what do 300 forwards and sending invoices have to do with IT. So I'd like to introduce you to Alan Smith, Chief Information Officer at Baker Tilly. Let's have a listen.
Pleasure to be here, Keith. Thanks for including me. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. So let's just start with maybe have you give us just a little bit of context. So the CIOs who are viewing this, a little bit about the organization, how you guys are structured at work and how you kind of utilize cloud.
Sure. So we're a US-based professional services organization, 4,000 plus users. I have the privilege of having them work across 17 different time zones, while a majority are, we would say, domestic. We certainly have a number of our users that are also international. So our IT group is really going through a transition from a structure and services capabilities, et cetera. But I would say that the old version, no other way to put it, of being functional areas of expertise still reside. So I have support, development, which includes report, data analytics, a digital research team is in that area as well, infrastructure, and IT security and risk.
Okay. What percentage of your workloads have you guys moved to cloud?
Great question. There's always a gotcha in that because it depends on, are you looking at your percentage of data? Are you looking at your percentage of actual cycles? Are you looking at percentage of applications that you support, et cetera? But having considered all that, I would say about 50% we have would be considered quote unquote cloud-based, and the rest would be traditional data center on-prem, but it's a co-location data center, not on-prem brick and mortar facility that my organization owns.
Gotcha. Are you guys using private cloud as well?
Yes, but primarily it's a public cloud infrastructure. Whether we allow individuals or organizations external to us to be able to access that's a little bit of a different question. But certainly your big three tech giants, digital giants, whatever, dragons, whatever term you want to use, yeah, we're using two of those three.
So let's talk a little bit about optimizing cloud operations.
Okay.
Give me a sense of how many different teams or business groups do you enable cloud resources?
I would say that's organization wide. It's not, the cool kids and the non-cool kids. Sorry to use that comparative. It's really portions of portions of services or capabilities that we would deliver to the organization. So think in terms of platforms. So you may have a platform or two that would be cloud-based in a specific area, and maybe a platform that would not. It isn't. We're not cutting the layers, if you will, by sales. I'll make up some groups here, but sales would have cloud or public cloud or some form of platform to support that, versus finance doesn't. It's really some payment systems and methods of billing or invoicing and receiving payments, maybe cloud-based. Others, if you think about a traditional GL or some traditional reporting, I think it's a better example, might be data center / I'll just say premises. I don't mean that literally, okay? Might be premises based, but deep analytics, machine learning, AI support, which we do, that would be cloud. And those services and capabilities being delivered into the financial area of the organization would come from those two different sources.
And when you're thinking about empowering innovation throughout your organization,
yep.
How are you managing allowing that, putting some policy around?
Well, so innovation is great, both literally as well as figuratively, and supporting it and the culture and everything else. So let's talk about, well, it's great to say, but how do you do? Okay. I think there are terms, cloud being one of them, that people use that There's two of you and I are talking, and I bet I have one definition and you probably have another, right? The old joke is you get 10 people in a room to define cloud and you come up with 14 different answers. The comment here, though, is around innovation. It's DevOps. All right, so we actually use that term, but I would say many of the individuals that might see this at a later date would say, yeah, that's not how we define it. And you'd be right. Okay, so from a DevOps perspective, from a Fusion team, Agile development, those are all buzzwords, but let's just say the group sandbox, want to go play, etc. That is really, really great stuff to throw into the cloud. It is absolutely great. Spin it up, spin it down. It also allows people to go and tinker and play, and therefore we've actually taken a step back from having strict security, etc. If you're just going to go play and it's going to be fake data and it's not going to be real and you're doing it as a proof of concept or even a proof of technology, go for it. We actually empower and give provisions to a lot of technical folks outside of enterprise technology to just go, do, enjoy, have fun. When it comes time, however, to load real data, that's when we'll overlay security policies. That's when we'll say, all right, maybe you need to shift from this type of area to this other type of area that might be a little bit more secure. It could be on the same platform, but we're just going to shift it somewhere else. So in then you would have, and now I'm going into production. What am I need it to be resilient, industrialized, scalable. You start throwing all of these compliance issues on, privacy, GDPR, for example, geolocation of data, Patriot Act in the United States, et cetera. Well, we don't want to do that at innovation because you'll never innovate. You'll burden everybody with it so much that they'll say one of two things. Either forget this, we just won't do it, or they'll say forget you, we'll go around and do shadow IT or something else, right? So for innovation, it's awesome. It is really, really great. You're still going to have some challenges, though, with respect to controlling your spend and monitoring usage and everything else. But I really can't think of a platform that would be better suited.
For your live data,
Yep.
the real data part of it. I mean, does IT need to have visibility down to all of those instances?
Yes, but I'm going to come at it from a little bit of a different perspective, which is from a security and compliance viewpoint, right? We have to know where the data is, especially when you start talking about again, geolocation or multiple jurisdictions, and we'll go right to the biggie, GDPR. So if you're bound by those, you absolutely need to have line of sight to it. Bad things happen if you don't. So from that perspective, I would say absolutely. When it comes to, do you need it just because? Well, no, but that just because becomes more business centric, right? We do need to know where our data is located. We do need to make sure that it's secured. We are a professional services organization, so we are audited by our clients all the time. We have security questionnaires that come in, et cetera. We need to be able to answer those. Therefore, we need to have that line of sight into the data.
And how do you guys do that now?
I would say hopefully well. I'm certainly not Pollyannish to be able to say that with 100% of the time and perfection and everything else that we know where our data is located. But certainly, we know our two cloud environments. We have really good line of sight into those. We have really good support by the teams that are supporting that. And to be fair, it does become a little bit of give and take, right? We'll give you this capability. All we ask for in return is, making sure that we're protecting the data, making sure that we're disclosing. If you're seen as enabling that innovation or enabling that type of even the non-innovation work, people will bring you along. It's when you're viewed as wanting to put up the barriers, and we all put up the barriers for the right reasons. So do not get me wrong with that. But if that's what if you're perceived as, then sometimes people won't bring you along.
And how do you work with that? Because can you automate a framework that people have to work within, or?
I'm a very pragmatic individual, and ultimately it all comes down to who's writing the check, who's paying the bill, right? And one way to avoid surprises is, well, no one's going to pay it except you. In that you could be, I'm not necessarily talking about that branch in that office or that line of business. I'm talking about an individual. Therefore, if you can have that overarching, and I want to say policy, I like the word theme. Okay, if we can have an overlaying theme here, and that theme basically says, look, the organization will make those investments. And I, as CIO, don't have to be the broker of choosing either what those investments are or where they go. I just need to make sure that we are looking at it from a business perspective, right? Case in point, I love analogies too. Would you let a line of business go and decide that all 300 people that are in that line of business get new cars? Would someone actually go out and buy, 300, fill in the blank Fords, and then expect that the organization is going to pay for all those cars? They'd be ludicrous, right? Well, we talk about data and systems. Well, check me if I'm wrong here. Sometimes the types of bills that people are out there going and saying that they need, and they're doing it on their own, might be the price of 300 Fords. So if you can get that thematic alignment or business alignment, then it helps filter through that type of stuff. But we talk about wanting to be a part of the business. Well, that's how you become part of the business, because you have alignment with a peer. And then when someone starts to go rogue, let's say, that becomes an issue for that area to deal with, not for me to fix the problem of the behavior.
Do you get like alerts when that kind of thing starts to
happen? Oh, yes. And to be fair, there's two parts. One is just a consumption model of what we've given. The other is if somebody spins up something different somewhere else, et cetera. Organizations and technology organizations are really good about sending invoices. And they're really good about following up with that. So as long as you have a great relationship with your CFO, which, luckily I'm blessed and I do, you're going to catch all those. So if there isn't a mechanism in place, and there's organizational support for reaching out and touching people that kind of, again, go rogue, you've in essence cut the ability for those people to do it, because again, being pragmatic, you're coming at it from a who's paying that bill.
So that helps you avoid perhaps that big surprise bill.
No, it helps me. I still get big surprises. It helps me avoid big surprises in a domain that I don't know about, right? When you're in a cloud environment, you may still get a big surprise. It's called the usage for this month bill. But this is at least avoiding stuff you don't know about, right?
So this sounds complex enough. I mean, do you have a team that focuses exclusively on the financial part of?
No. However, the financial acumen within certain areas of our organization, IT organization, are pretty solid. So I'm not talking about doing net present value calculations or anything else. I'm just talking about understanding how the organization works, what drives the increase in their data, what drives the increase in business, which would drive increase in data as well, and then what that can do to certain systems with respect to how much you pay for those, right? If I make 10,000 more widgets, right, you would have systems in place to understand raw materials that go into that, the cost of labor to do that. Do I need to have a third shift? Do I need to ... That financial acumen, I would say, is just kind of embedded in in management or leadership within enterprise technology.
And so tell me a little bit about how you think about, well, there's a couple questions here, but it's, thinking about return on investment, right?
Yeah.
When you think about moving workloads over from legacy apps, I mean, how do you think about that? And are there metrics that you use?
Well, the return on investment metrics are the same regardless, from my humble opinion, okay, are the same regardless of the platform or where the data is located. Simply because you're going to the cloud doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, I need to recalculate my ROI. No, you don't. Now, the inputs may be different, but, so case in point, if you understand depreciation, and if you understand that I spend $10 million, but I make the math easy, and I depreciate it over 10 years, that's $1 million in operational expense. There's a difference between cash flow and OpEx. When you talk to cloud providers, they always say, well, you want to move CapEx investment into OpEx. Sure. But if my OpEx is $1.5 million a year, it's costing me more money. Right? Yes, I have a cash flow savings. And so certainly what we've seen over the last 6 months, and I'm not going to use the word that it might be something show to explain what's been going on in the world. There may be, a difference in the balance between cash flow and OpEx, right? But let's just set that aside. Now your ROI calculation may show that, well, it costs more. Okay, but there may be different costs that by going to the cloud versus, I'll use that term, versus a data center, that you need to make sure you look into, because they do add up. Do I need to back it up? Do I need to have services to do that? Do I need to have systems to be able to do that? Or am I relying on that party? Do I need to apply patches? Do I need to upgrade those systems, right? And by the way, you don't have depreciation over 10 years. So you're just looking at different potential inputs, but the ROI calculation is still identical.
And I was even thinking about maybe some even more ambiguous factors like speed, the ability to spin up quickly,
Absolutely. Okay. But that gets in the ROI calculation around innovation.
Okay.
Right. Because and unless I'm off base, which could be, we're not talking about ERP implementations and innovation around that. Those are different. You may still have some scalability concerns and growth and everything else. But when you're talking about two topics, we'll talk about innovation, and then we'll also talk about business cycle, right? So if I have a cycle to my business, and I need to be able to answer the bell at the peak of my 12-month cycle, that by definition, unless you're flat, builds in this excess capacity, right? And so back in the day, if I could rent capacity, anything else, well, that'd be great. Okay, I can do that in a cloud-based environment. So when you talk about soft things like being able to spin up, absolutely. But to some organizations, those are not necessarily soft costs. That's I need to spin up for a traditional Christmas season, if you will, right? And I need to double capacity. And then it goes away in January after everybody returns stuff, right? If the cost to be able to give that in a flex environment is less expensive than the depreciation that I would have to get if I bought it myself, go with the flex environment. It may be a lot of money, but as long as it's less than the 12-month bill, you're still saving money. That's where we kind of get hung up, and I can fall into the same trap too. I say, well, that's strange, because if I take my depreciation and I divide it monthly, this is it's going to cost me 8 months worth of cost in order to give my flexibility for 3 months. True, but I'm not paying for 12.
I mean, because you probably built up policies and procedures over years for the on-prem stuff.
Sure.
Probably have that knack. Is cloud more difficult? Is it?
It can, yes. So I was about to say it can be. No. It is.
Okay.
And I would say that will have to do a little bit of digging into your cloud-based provider, because sometimes they may not necessarily want to share with you all those details, for example. But they're going to be spelled out in a contractual arrangement that you have, right? What's my overage? What's my velocity? If I use that term, the term that I mean by that is how often am I updating, putting up, pulling down, putting up, pulling down. That'd be velocity. I might say frequency, but right, how often am I doing that? That can affect what your costs are, right? Well, if I have that internally, I don't care. And I may have a bandwidth concern, right? But I really don't care. But in that type of environment, you would. Again, I view it, one way to get over some cultural challenges, even within my own team, is let's not think of it in terms of, oh my gosh, you know, it's the cloud, we need to go to the cloud is great. It's another option, right? So everything isn't, you have to. You may say cloud first or virtual first, even as we go forward, but cloud first doesn't mean cloud always. And I think that that's an important differentiation to make, including to business folks, as well as your own team, right? Because people might tend to get a little weird if my job is infrastructure and you're taking away infrastructure, you're taking away my job. And nothing could be further from the truth. I view it no different than changing a platform for your network operating system. If you can tell by the gray hair, I've been around the block long enough. I've survived going from an IBM-centric environment to a Microsoft-centric environment, if you will, or going from, you know, System 36, et cetera, to an Intel base, or going from an AS400. I'm going to throw out a whole bunch of old guy references here, okay? But if cloud, on-prem, it's the same. We're just using different words. And so as long as you can get people comfortable with that, you're good to go. Getting back to the root of the question, is it difficult? Yes, but I mean, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
I heard this from a very, very large, actually, tech company. CIO said the following, said, you know, going into the cloud lets you fail quickly and cheaply. But if you're wildly successful, it'll bankrupt your organization if you're not careful. And that's see, your reactions was mine too. It was like, what do you mean, my brother? You know, help me out with this. And where he was coming from is exactly what I'm trying to talk about in terms of, if you're innovative and you're testing and everything else, it's great, but you still have to do your duty of what makes, bluntly, if you're a CIO and you're watching this, is what's made you successful, right? He or she is looking at your IT organization, and you're still going to have to do that when you make that, okay, this works, it's a proof of concept. And even when you scale it, you may choose a different platform among the tech giants. You may actually choose that I did the proof of concept in AWS, Google, Microsoft, but I'm actually going to go to a data center model because of the costs involved. Or you might choose that I will stay in the cloud because I might have compliance, security, you know, those types of pieces. So be careful, because you could put the wrong system on the wrong platform. But look at it from an economic perspective, look at it from a business transaction perspective. Don't look at it from a cultural perspective or even finding talent perspective. Bluntly, the great talent that caused you to be successful in an on-prem environment may actually transition extremely well to the cloud environment. It's just going to be a slightly different type of an approach, but, you know, bring the resources that made you successful along for that ride.
Hope you heard a few things that triggered some new thinking for you. We do these conversations on IT topics weekly, so please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you get updates on new content, as well as you can post comments and, more importantly, suggest topics that you'd like us to address. You can see that we have some pretty amazing resources. So please let us know how we can help you on your upcoming digital transformation and enterprise IT projects. Thanks very much. Until next time.